All right, here we are at day one of 7 days of breath work. So for this breath work, what we're going to do most of it on is just seated on a chair like I am today. Or if you prefer, you can do it on the ground with maybe a bolster or a pillow under your butt. My recommendation, though, is going to be to do it from a chair. The reason being is a lot of us have poor hip mobility. So if we're doing it without a bolster, a lot of us are going to be holding abdominal tension to help keep us upright enough. So being in a chair is going to help a lot with that. And if we do have a bolster, we still tend to not get up straight enough. So a chair is going to allow you to be in a comfortable position to focus on your breathing versus opening up your hips right now. So we're gonna do all our breath work through our nose, and we're also going to do it from the seated position. So think nice and tall, nice and upright. So we don't want to really lean back slouch into the chair, nice and upright. Think of a little string at the top of your head, kind of pulling you up, adding a little bit of length for you. So on day one, we are just going to go over a couple key things that are going to help us through the rest of our breath work. So number one is going to be making sure that our nose is open. Number two is that we're breathing into the proper part of our body. So we're going to start on the chair today, and then later we're going to go over to the ground. So make sure you have some space available for you for the second half of this. So first thing is to just get your nose opened. A lot of us breathe through our mouth, which means that we have our nose kind of closed off. So we need to get that to open back up so we can get a lot more better breath through there. So first thing we want to do is basically just test, see how our nose is doing. And then at the end, we can come back and we can retest that. So we are going to just plug one nostril, just take your thumb simply, put it over one nostril, and you're going to take 5 to 7 breaths through your other nostril and just take note of how that feels for you. Switch over, do the other side, and then after you do that, we're going to go back at the end and retest that same feeling and see if it feels a little bit different for us. So what we're going to focus on is some lymphatic drainage massage that we can do around our face to help open up our nose in the sense of clearing any restricted sinuses. We're going to do some light nasal pulling, and we're going to do what's called the lion's face and a little breathwork practice where we plug our nose to help open up the nose as well. So we'll start with the lymphatic drainage. So all we have to do with this, take one finger, we're just quite lightly touching just in this area here around our nose. There's some sinuses in there, and we're just trying to clear any blockages that might be in there. And we don't have to push hard. We're not trying to get a deep massage here. All we need is enough that we're moving that skin a little bit. And you're just going to spend 1 to 2 minutes here. You can go little circles, other direction. I like to do nice light little pulls away from the nose as well. So you're going to do that on both sides for 1 to 2 minutes. And then you're going to move on to nasal pulls. So what you have to do here is gently pull on your nostril. The important thing is to remember how delicate our nose is. We don't want to have any bleeding noses or broken vessels, anything like that. So remember that this is a gentle exercise up around your nose. All you're going to do, plug one side, do 5 to 8 breaths through the other nostril while you're lightly pulling on it. So I'll give you a quick demo of what that looks like. You're going to plug, and you're going to do 5 to 8 breaths like that. And I will put all this protocol in your email itself so that you can follow along. These are just going to be demos of everything, and then you're going to have the example of what that looks like, and you can go through the entire thing so you don't have to watch the entire video through and go through it with me. You just get the examples, and then you can do it on your own time. Next one is going to be the lion's face. So this one might feel a little bit silly, but it's amazing how little we use all the facial expressions and muscles that we can of our face, which really help us to open everything up. So the idea of a lion like growling, right, is kind of like this face like this, right? So that, but we're also now going to think about taking our tongue and extending it as far out as we can. So it's going to look like this. And we want to hold that for about 3 seconds. So we're going to do 5 of those for about 3 second hold. So again, it's like this. and then back in. So you can see how much facial expression is going into that. Feels a little funny, but it opens that face up and bring that tongue out. It's not very often that we get to bring that tongue out and extend it, kind of give it a stretch, so to speak. So that's the next piece. And then lastly, we're going to go with some light breath holds um, to help open up the nose. So what we're going to do for that is basically you're going to inhale through your nose, exhale through your nose. Once you're fully exhaled, you're going to come pinch your nose off, hold that until either a moderate desire to breathe. So you want to take that breath in. First, it'll kind of be weak. It'll build to that moderate. If it gets to that heavy or severe desire to breathe, we've gone a little too far. So just kind of a moderate feel where it's like, yeah, I could definitely take a breath now. Or 30 seconds. If you're not sure exactly where that marker is for you, 30 seconds is a good marker. Some of us that are a little short on our breath and don't have great breathing mechanics might find that getting to 30 seconds is hard. So that's why we put in that moderate sensation as well. So what we are going to do here is that breath in, breath out. You're going to hold that for 30 seconds. If you really want to up it a little bit, do some gentle rocks side to side. That just helps clear out the nose a little bit more if you have any nasal congestion. So what that would look like is your inhale, your exhale, and those little rocks. So anytime that you have nasal congestion, that's going to help. So that is the first thing we want to do is clear up that nose because we're going to do all our other breathing through our nose. So we need to be open so that we can actually get that exchange of air that we're looking for. So just to remind you, just to break this all back down, is we start with the lymph drainage massage for 1 to 2 minutes on each side. So just that light, gentle in around this area, little circles, try and open anything up there. And then we're going to go to the nasal pulse. So that's going to be blocking one, breathing through the other while giving it a nice gentle little pull. And that's going to be 5 to 8 breaths of doing that. So inhale and exhale. And then we are going to do the lion's face. We're going to do 5 of those, holding that face for about 3 seconds. And then we're going to go to the breath holds with the little rock in there. We're going to do 3 to 5 of those for moderate sensation or 30 seconds. And with that one, if you're finding that your nose is particularly plugged up, that will help clear that up. So those are what we want to do. And then we're going to come back and retest that original thing that we did where we're just going to plug off one nostril, take 5 to 7 or 8 breaths and see how that feels compared to the very start. Does it feel a little bit less restricted through the nose? Check the other side and see if you have one side that's always a little bit more restricted than the other. Anyone with like a nasal deviation or something like that may have one side that's a little bit more restricted, but you will continue to improve the flow going up through your nose by doing these exercises to open up the nose. Let's go take a look at the diaphragmatic breathing. So we're going to learn how to breathe 360 degrees. So we're going to jump over, take another look with me down on the ground on a mat. So make sure you have either a mat or just a comfortable place to lay on the ground. Today we're going to focus on diaphragmatic breathing. This is different than what people typically think of as abdominal breathing. We're going to go over that as our first difference. Abdominal breathing is a good starting point, but we really want to get to what I call more diaphragmatic breathing, and I'll explain that in a second. So the number one thing we want to do is get out of breathing up in our chest and get lower down into our body. A lot of the times this is thought of as taking like a deep breath, which is what we want, but a lot of people confuse deep with a big breath. So we don't want to necessarily make the size of our breath bigger. We just want it to be lower in our body instead of up in our chest. So first thing that tends to happen here is we get away from breathing in our chest and down to our abdomen. So the best setup for this is to just lay down, feet flat, knees bent, and then finding a thin pillow to stick under your head. It just keeps you up just that little bit more, which gives your diaphragm a little bit more space to move here. So number one is to just put one hand on our chest, one hand on our abdomen, and what we want to look for is that the chest hand stops moving and we start to get more movement through the abdomen. So when we take a breath, it looks like this, where there's more movement through this hand and less through this hand. So that's where most people start. And that's what I would call more of abdominal breathing, is people tend to really focus on getting away from the chest and down to here, which is a great starting point. But the next thing that we really want to do is get away from just this abdomen rising and falling. We got it down to the right area, but now we want to take it from just here to a 360-degree expansion. So getting into these side ribs and into the back is quite difficult. It takes people more time than just getting down to the abdomen. This is the easy part, is to make the shift down to here. The hard part is to get that 360-degree expansion. So what we want to do there is give as much feedback to our body as possible. So that's why before we had our hands here. Now we're going to put them kind of clamping down on our lowest ribs there, so that our thumbs are hanging out at that very back low rib there, and we can start to feel as we push into our back, and kind of this part of the hand is going to pick up the movement of the lateral side, and our pointer fingers are going to catch the movement at the front. So now our breath's going to look more like this. Where I'm really trying to not just push out through here, but get some movement coming out through there, but again, more of it coming out here and out through the back. So you're gonna feel a little bit of resistance pushing into your thumbs and your sides as you get that 360 degrees. And you almost wanna feel it like it's a belt, or like your hands are wrapped around squeezing it and it's pushing out, and then you're squeezing it back in on the exhale. So inhale, it's opening up. Exhale, it's closing back down. And that's how we get to a more diaphragmatic breath. This is a really good starting posture. What we want to do eventually is translate this into functional breathing, but we do that through these exercises. So we start laying on the ground. Next step of what we want to do is transition to where we can do this seated. So either in a chair or sitting just on the floor like this. Think about something pulling your head to the top of your head, so you're sitting nice and upright, and then you're doing the same thing, hands onto that area, and you're getting that 360-degree breath. And then eventually we translate that into actually like moving around, going for a short walk where we just have our hands on our ribs, so that we can, as we are now moving, we're starting to figure it out. And another really good place where I'll transition into like more of a loaded or an exercise-based thing is with a dead bug. So if you're familiar with the dead bug, you can see the translation immediately from this position here, where we're practicing breathing, to dead bug. I'll just have people start legs up here, hands still on there, and you're maintaining your breath as you go through a very simple, slow dead bug, where you're maintaining a certain amount of abdominal pressure while continuing to breathe in that 360 degrees. And that's how we get towards functional breathing. So biggest thing to remember here is the difference between abdominal breathing and diaphragmatic breathing, and how we want to be diaphragmatic, breathing 360 degrees, versus just abdominal, where we see that abdomen coming up and down. It's a good starting point. We're getting out of the chest and down a little bit lower. We want 360 degrees expansion. And then when I say take a deep breath, I want you to remember that that means coming down into that area of the body versus the breath itself getting bigger. So the breath remains pretty much the same, just the location of it is lower in our body. Almost think like down into our pelvis a little bit. And then if we decide that we are taking a bigger breath for whatever reason, we want that to be starting here, filling up down here, and then you will transfer to breathing up into your chest over time. It'll be like a wave up, and then when you exhale, wave down. So that's going to be how we transition to more of a diaphragmatic breath.